Welcome friends to a brand new video. I've not uploaded to Facebook for a very long time because I've been using IGTV. But anyway, today I thought I want to share with you how was ancient literature preserved. This is something important, and this is actually the introduction to a brand new series that I'm making called the Muslim Thinkers Living Under the Islamic Civilization. And the reason why I've decided to do this is because that when it comes to modern scientific discoveries, like this discovery of gravity, for example, and the discovery of germs and bacteria, for example, and astronomy, all this can be attributed back to the Muslim scientists, because it is these Muslim scientists who have actually preserved, challenged, and came up with astronomical tables that were being used by Copernicus. And then his work influenced Isaac Newton, okay, influenced Joseph Priestley, influenced Albert Einstein, influenced Stephen Hawking, Richard Dawkins, and Lawrence Krauss, and so on and so forth. When we look at the philosophy of science, it has always been astronomy. Sorry, when we look at the history of science, astronomy has always led the sciences. It is true ever since back then. We found its parallel under the ancient Egyptian dynasty, whereby they were, I would say, they were very smart people, and they were astronomers themselves, and they are able to observe the constellation, and they are able to came up with scientific discoveries. Okay, although all these sciences have evolved ever since, modern sciences is different from ancient sciences. But if you want to go from ancient sciences to modern sciences, there must be a link. Okay, and this link is, we found this link from the Muslim scientists living under the Islamic civilization. Because when Europe was Christianized, when Europe became a Christendom, a lot of these sciences were not being preserved. Not only these sciences were not being preserved, books were being burned. That goes against the Bible. Not only books were being burned, but major thinkers and scientists were being burned at the stake as well. Okay. And so when Islam rises in 650 CE or so, when it overtook the Eastern Roman Empire by the Mediterranean, what's left of it was Constantinople and the Western Roman Empire. When Constantine and his predecessors later on, when the Byzantium Empire finally collapsed at the 15th century, a lot of these Europeans thinkers and scientists have been actually living and studying under the Islamic within the Islamic dynasty at the House of Wisdom. The House of Wisdom is like modern universities. And so what happened is that when science were being heavily suppressed in Europe under Christendom, science flourished under the Jews, Christians, Zoroastrians, and Muslims living in the Islamic civilization. And this is something that we have to make clear here, because when Christian monks and priests, when they were copying books, they were mostly copying scripture. They do not care about the works of Plato, the works of Aristotle, the attributed works of Socrates, Apollonius of Tyana, for example, And a lot of all these philosophers, the works of Seneca, um, they do not care for all these works. And so, how did we have these works today? It is because majority of them were unearthed, okay, but these were all discovered recently by archaeologists. But what we have to say and to submit is that it is the Muslims who have preserved all these works, because under the Abbasid Caliphate, especially that of Ma'mun and Harun al-Rashid, before that as well, and even Safa, even though it's too early to say, but all the way to the time of Mutawakkil, so on and so forth, the Abbasid Caliph, they have sent their emissaries to distant lands, all the way to China, from Baghdad to China, and all the way west to Fez in Morocco, and even up north to Great Britain. And what they wanted to do was actually to bring back ancient literature so that they can translate it to Arabic, because Arabic became the lingua franca of the Islamic lands by the time of the Abbasid in 850 CE or so. And so these Muslims emissaries, they travel all the way to India, so on and so forth, and then they brought back with them to Baghdad to be libraried, to be housed in the library of Baghdad, and also in the library of Cordoba, at the Umayyad library. Unfortunately, when Ferdinand and Isabella, when the Reconquista happened, about 600,000 ancient books in the library of Cordoba, in the Umayyad library, were being burned. And when the Mongols came, about 700,000 books and ancient rare manuscripts were being thrown into the Euphrates and Tigris river. And for about a week or so, reports states that the river was dark in color because of ink pollution. And so when Europe was under the Christian empire, or the Christian dynasty, or Christendom, a lot of scientists and major thinkers were being heavily suppressed, and most of them have to retract their works, and some of them were exiled, some of them were burned at the stake, and some of them flee to the New World when after the 16th centuries. But majority of them flee to Baghdad earlier on, and then they flee to Cordoba, okay, which is the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal, southern Spain and Portugal. And so it is here that we found whereby science started. When I say science, I meant astronomy, physics, alchemy, medicine. Okay, it is in these two areas particularly whereby these sciences were blooming and blossoming. And so it is these Muslim scientists that live in Cordoba and Baghdad that later on influence the sciences that we have in the Enlightenment, and even the arts in the Renaissance. And so this series I will take a look at about 12 of these Muslim thinkers in the field of medicine, in the field of astronomy, in the field of alchemy, in the field of mathematics, in the field of physics. Again, we can go and open up the doors in the field of music even. In case you do not know, it is the music that we have today were heavily influenced by the Ottomans and the Al-Kindi and Al-Farabi in the 12th century. who were Muslims, musicians as well. And the theory of music, the practice of the theory of music was influenced later on by Al-Farabi and Al-Kindi, because Al-Farabi especially and Al-Kindi, they were the major players when it comes to the influence of music, and the Ottomans later on. And the first conservatory of music was actually in Cordoba, under the Umayyad dynasty, the Muslim dynasty, in 1250 CE or so. But I've not decided to take a look at the arts. I've only decided to take a look at science. We can do a separate series for the arts, painting, and so on and so forth, poetry even, because it is the Arabs who excel in poetry. And then later on, the poetry was the Arabic poetry and the Arabic language influence the Western language as well, especially that of Oxford and British and Shakespeare as well. But I've not decided to take a look at all this because it would be a major research, and I'm more interested in the sciences when it comes to astronomy, physics, chemistry, mathematics, medicine. And so I've decided to take a look at about 12 to 15 of these Muslim thinkers who influenced modern science. And yeah, so in the next video we will start discussing about these major Islamic thinkers, Muslim thinkers. Yeah, so I thank you for watching, and yeah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.